Welcome to the show. I'm Doug Johnson, and this is The Business of Life. Each show, we try to showcase a local personality who shares with us strategies for success. Today's guest is a mindset coach, a motivational speaker, an entrepreneur, and a soon-to-be author.
Yes.
Kim Kucinich also is known for being a reality facilitator, and that's reality facilitator.
That is.
I should facilitate that. Who gets people unstuck from their mindsets, their everyday stress, and the struggles of everyday life. And I just found out that her childhood nickname was Channel 3, 5, and 8. So we'll talk about that, Kim.
We will.
Later.
Okay.
So, Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you,
It is
Doug.
such a pleasure to have you here.
Glad to be here.
We've known one another for years, and I've always been fascinated by what you do. So, would you tell our audience, please, what you do
Yes.
and how you got to this point in your life?
So as you mentioned, I am a mindset coach. I'm a motivational speaker. I'm an entrepreneur with a candy business and a soon-to-be author. But really where it all started, Doug, was I wanted to sit in your chair. So in high school, I wanted to be a talk show host. And it didn't quite work out for me because someone had told me that would never be anything that you can do for a living. It's not for you.
Oh,
And there's just way too much competition out there. It's way too competitive, and you can't have that. And most people would go, gosh, what an awful person. Like, who would try to discourage a kid from having a dream?
right.
And so, that dream started as a field trip to John Carroll University,
Okay.
and all the local TV personalities were there, Channel 3, 5, and 8. And
As we all remember.
as we do, don't we? And so basically, I came home from that field trip and I shared with someone that I know what I'm going to do when I grow up, and I'm going to be a talk show host. And I got that message. So the message for me later in life became, unfortunately, I believed them. And that is on me. I own that. So really getting to a point in your life, so I wound up going into sales. I wound up having another time where this TV host thing came by my door, and I met with Ann Keith at Channel 55. And Ann, I was doing a sales call at the time. I was some type of technology I was selling at the time, and Ann's like, Kim, we got to get you in the studio. You'd be great on camera. We love your voice. And so they brought me in on a Saturday, and they're like, wow, you really could do this. Why don't you go back to school and get your degree and then come back and see us? And I just thought, well, I just got done putting myself through college. I was
Through a
working
degree.
2 jobs, and I was paying off my student loans, and that job that I went to see her in was one of my ways of paying off my loans. So it didn't quite work out for me that time, but I let it pass me by. So I figured, you know what, I could create my own way, my own conversation, and here I am, a motivational speaker and a coach.
Okay. You mentioned mindset coach.
Yes.
And there's also the term out there, life coach.
Yes.
So could you talk about what each of them are and the difference?
Absolutely. So I think people use those terms interchangeably.
Okay,
And really what I have found when people come to see me is they're just they dig their heels into a certain way of approaching problems and people and situations. And so as I kept listening to why they were coming to talk with me, and again, a life coach is really, to boil it down, to make it really, here, let's put it out there, is that, it really is when you're here and you want to be here.
Okay.
Right, so
And how to
this
get
is,
kind of from here to
that's
there.
right. How do you get from point A to point B? And it's not that we can't do that for ourselves. We all do that all day long, right? As accomplished as all of us are, we just don't carve out the time to put that plan together. And sometimes having a sounding board on the other end of that really kind of helps be that catalyst that helps kind of move you along into action and moving you forward. I'll say 2 other things about that. The other is that the people in our lives sometimes like us right where we're at.
True.
Right? They're happy with the life they've built with us, the things that we're doing with them and for them, and how we corral their whole world and help them. We're kind of that constant for them. And what I find is that when they go to talk to their significant others or family members or friends, those people don't hold that space for them to see them in that new light of who they are trying to be. So coming in and hiring someone like myself who has no background on who they are or what they do, I'm only there to hold that space and help them move forward into that new life they're trying to create.
Well, and no one likes change.
Right.
And oftentimes what I have seen with people is that the family often is the group that wants to hold back because you're one of us. Why should you be better than us? Why should you make all these changes and disrupt our lives? And so I see where that really fits.
And it's amazing too. So there's a song by Fleetwood Mac, right?
And you're going to sing it for us?
I'm going to.
Okay.
Well, I've been afraid of changes 'cause I built my life around you. So just what you just said, right? People are afraid of change. They're afraid. People are counting on us to be who they've always known us to be. And if all of a sudden we're saying, I'm done with this chapter, I really would like to try this on. Well, what do you mean you're going to do that now? What are we going to do about all these other things? And so it kind of stops somebody. It stops them, holds them back from kind of exploring and trying to take on what might be next for them.
Right. You also talk a great deal in your motivational talks about resilience.
Yes.
And by the way, I just want to hop back here. I'm going to have to add singer to that list
All
of what
right,
you do.
we'll take it.
I'm really impressed, Kim. Maybe you ought to cut a record soon.
All right, we'll talk about that next.
Okay. So resilience,
Yes.
motivational speaking.
Yes.
How do those go together? And how does motivational speaking tie into mindset coaching?
Yeah, so, the Webster's dictionary says it's a way of bouncing back. Well, that doesn't really give us too much to take action on, right? So it really is your ability to adapt to the challenges and change and setbacks and disappointments that come your way. And it is a different way. It is an intentional, deliberate approach to life. And quite frankly, you really can have something happen to you in one day, and the next day be in action trying to wrap your head around it. Now be with it, right? Like, because some of those things can be sad and can be hard and you got to process it, but it really is a bump in the road. You do not let it stop you. You keep moving through it. So you really can learn this. Some people are born with it. Some people adapt through their whole life as they're growing up, but most people have to develop it and build it up over time to face into adversity. And really that mindset becomes adversity can be an advantage.
And then factoring in the resilience part, and of course taking time to do that also, and that being a mindset. What do you think, Kim, is the easiest way to develop a resilience?
So, I think you need to obviously do some reading.
Right.
You need to find some resources that talk about it. And, I pretty much now been spending a lot of my time going and talking in corporate environments because, nothing's slowing down. The pace of life is picking up with technology and more things that we're taking on. So literally, you've got to reach out and bring and pull that information towards you. And some employers are, or corporate events, or just all the different talking environments you can go into, is they're literally putting this information in front of their people so they start really learning how to, I have a resilience muscle. How do I use it? When do I use it? What's the best way to use it? So it is a training and development conversation.
And you're talking about corporate, but that's also true in private life.
For sure.
That we all need to be resilient and develop that muscle, as you refer to it.
Yes.
So as a person, in addition to doing my own research, is there a tip for something that we can use to exercise the resilience muscle?
So I think the first thing is to be grounded about really the situation that you're facing into.
Okay.
I think what happens a lot of times is when something upsetting happens, change, challenge, a lot of people stick their heads in the sand.
Good point.
They hide from it. They think it's going to go away.
And it doesn't.
And it doesn't. And I think communication is key, right? So we're all afraid to have the conversations that need to be had. I mean, think about it, conflict resolution, conflict management. When something goes wrong, it's hard for people to come together and face into really, what are we dealing with here? People just, they scatter, right? They don't want to talk about it. So the first thing is get real about, here's what we're dealing with, or here's what I'm dealing with. And you need to let people know where you're at so they kind of know that something has shifted in your world. And you ask for help, which we're all really not very good at doing.
Right. We are not good at that.
And why do you think that is? I'm just curious.
Well, I think we're afraid our self-esteem is at stake here.
Yeah.
And if we ask for help, that is kind of saying, well, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I need to know this. So,
yes.
And see, you just became a TV talk show
I
host.
did shift that right around
How
on you
about
pretty
that?
good. Nice
Good job. Yes. Good job.
That's great.
So, do you think the idea of asking for help perhaps is easier generationally? For instance, asking for help of someone in the same generation, or perhaps a Y generation asking a boomer for help. Do you think
I
it's
haven't
more or less
seen a distinction in gender or age.
just
Really
it's
haven't.
really
It's
difficult
really, we
and
put our
need to
walls
do
up, we put our armor up, we want to look good or we want to avoid looking bad.
it. Okay.
That's
And we all
kind of
want to
the
do that.
Bottom line, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Want to look good or avoid looking bad at any cost.
And again, that comes back to mindset.
Yes.
What is our mindset about ourselves? What is our mindset for the other person?
When trouble sets in, who are you going to be in the face of
Right.
that trouble, and then sharing it with someone saying, I've got a situation going on, and finding that support system and asking for help.
I think once you decide who you want to be, and we all need to think about that because many times we're on the treadmill, but we don't know where we're going.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about that? How do we reach out and perhaps set some goals about who it is that we want to be?
Yeah, I love that question. And so, like I said earlier, people come to me and they're saying, I have worked so hard for so long and I don't know how I got here. And so we start having this conversation about expectations. And so what did you expect it to look like? And it's very silent. Well, we're all told this is what it's supposed to look like. You're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. I'm supposed to get married, I'm supposed to go to college, I'm supposed to. And we all get caught up in the supposed to. And I know that, I've done it myself. This is what you do. This is the path you're supposed to follow. But to break off of that path, you've got to just pull out, reflect, spend some time with yourself to get to know yourself. We spend more time worrying about the opinions of the people out there than we do what's happening right here with ourselves and our relationship with ourselves. Most people are like, I have a relationship with myself? Well, I'm hoping that you know that you need to start having a relationship with yourself because you are the most important person. You are going to attract and bring different people into your world. And how are you going to tell them who you are? If you don't stand for something, you fall for something. You fall for anything.
Right.
Right? If you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. So you've got to be clear for yourself, reflect, and get to that place that you just talked about, getting to know and who you want to be.
And this is kind of where the reality facilitation enters the picture.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
So, Kim, talk a little bit about that.
Love it. So I'll be in a room having a conversation with one of my talks or my workshops or even a one-on-one coaching session, and someone will be telling me a story, and I will say, okay, well, tell me what happened with that story. And they'll say, well, I did this, and then this happened. And I said, okay, so you said to somebody, I'm really not sure that I'd like to go out with you. Correct. And what happened after that? And he said, well, the other person got really upset with me. I said, okay, so you were just speaking your mind for yourself, correct? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. I'm just really not into that person. I said, that's your right. You can own that. That's okay, right? The other person takes it as mean-spirited and all upset. Even in the work environment, that's even a better example in the work environment where that person's did so-and-so. Well, what happens is we have this conversation in our head. Something happened. We made it mean something. we collapse that. We make it mean something that it doesn't actually mean. All it was is that this person's up to something else. It has nothing to do with you. So for instance, I was having a conversation with my sister. And my sister and I thought we had a decent relationship, but I wanted to get closer to her. And my sister's like, you know, Kim, I guess I've just always been mad at you. Okay, good, we're getting to something now. I want to understand what's underneath that, right? And she's like, well, you left me. You went away to college and you left me. And I was your older sister and you left me. And I said, Lori, so here, I went away to college. She made it mean that I left her. It had nothing to do with that. Like, that's actually did happen. But I was looking at the next stage of my life. I'm going to take on and take care of what I need to go and do. And I was taking, right, I'm just here, taking care of myself and my life. My sister makes it mean that I don't love her. I don't care about her. I don't want her to be my big sister anymore. It had nothing to do with it. So she collapsed those stories and made it mean something it doesn't mean. She dragged that story with her for years. And it was in the way of our relationship. So really, by us kind of really having what's get underneath why she's so mad, I was able to say, it had nothing to do with you. I really just was doing the next right step for myself. Cleaned that up.
And how difficult is it, though, sometimes to have that conversation? And we need to realize that it's difficult or going to be
We'd
difficult.
have so many more nicer Thanksgiving and Christmas meals if we could just dive into some of those things that were not even, where did that come from? We didn't know it was on the radar.
Right, so, kind of like people going in the same direction but in different cars.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, Doug.
Okay, Kim, you've told me that you are going to author a book.
I am.
Tell us about that, would you please?
So I won't give you the title yet.
Okay.
I'll give you the tagline of the title. How's that? So, mastering the mindsets that matter most when things do not go as expected.
Cool.
Ooh.
Okay, so talk about the content a little bit.
Yeah, so what I've decided to do, you know, there's a lot of authors that have written a book about resilience, so there's another key there.
Right.
So the book will be about resilience, and there's lots of, in all the other books, there's lots of scientific things and back up the whole, and theory, exactly. Yeah. And I just thought, well, with the fast-paced life, everybody's moving fast. If somehow I created a resource, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, of a book, you know, it's got 25 chapters, 4 or 5 pages tops, so that if you sit down in one setting, you can get a tip to take it into your life and move something forward to become more resilient.
And how are you writing this book? Because you've said it's a year away.
It is.
Why so long? I'm just curious.
It's a process that I'm going through for myself, and I've never written a book before, so it will be my first book. And in between what I'm doing with life coaching and speaking and the candy company, and I've also, like, I love that question. Let me just back up now that so I've decided to put it out there a year so I could enjoy writing it as well. So, you know, we all put these deadlines on ourselves, and it's like, you know, I got to do this, and like, you know what, I want to enjoy the process of it. So in between doing all the different things that I'm doing, I thought, I'm going to put it out there far enough so I can really enjoy the process of writing this book, and it's not just another deadline on my to-do list.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned a couple of times the candy company, groovycandies.com. So, thank you, Kim. You know kind of where my weakness is here. Tell us about that.
So yeah, groovycandies.com is one of the largest online candy superstores.
Okay.
And back in the day, it was found by all the retro, hard-to-find candies. We have 5,200 SKUs at this point.
Oh my gosh.
Right? So we're right-sizing the company, and we're transforming it. So at this point, we have about 1 million visitors that come to groovycandies.com a year.
Wow.
And when they come to visit us, we can give them any assortment of any kind of candy that they would like. However, we also realize that the demographics that are coming to visit us, they're 25 to 54.
Okay.
They're women, and they're the people buying a lot of things in the household. So we've decided to kind of shift the name from Groovy Candies to Groovy Caboodle. And we are going to carry other things that women with that demographic 25 to 54 buy in their household, and pets they buy everything for their pets. So we are just in the process of adding SKUs and handling all kinds of different fun pet products for customers, as well as some retro toys.
For animals or for humans?
For humans.
Okay.
A crazy straw. Remember the crazy straw?
Yeah.
Right? There's all kinds of fun little gadget gifts, stocking stuffers, and
Okay.
I wouldn't say gag gifts, but fun gifts that, we can create a fun environment by giving them to your friends who are maybe turning 50 or 60 or 70.
Or 70. Uh-huh. Those older folks.
They're hard to find items, and so we put it in one place.
Right. And can I just say here, 70 is the new 35.
Agreed.
There we go. So
Absolutely.
good luck with that.
Thank you.
Tell us how that company, which is really exciting, fits with mindset coaching and your motivational speaking. How do the three of them come together?
So, they're really not related. It's just something really fun.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's those times in your life where you say yes to fun. And part of what my whole life coaching world and mindset thing is, finding more fun, freedom, and fulfillment. And this kind of really gives us that.
And as long as I've known you, that's kind of been your mantra. So there really is a connection there, because I know how much you enjoy speaking and how much you enjoy coaching.
Yes.
Here's another avenue, kind of another stream, if you will, that fits your fun and fabulous
I'll take
idea.
that too.
Okay, okay, sounds good. Well, we will put that on the contact sheet
Perfect.
at the end of the show, so folks can go to groovycandies.com and check it out also. Kim, part of our show is talking about strategies for success. And you and I have talked about this quite a bit, and we have 3 strategies from you. And I'd just like to go through them with you fairly quickly. The first one is, do not soul out on yourself.
Yes.
What does that mean? And notice I said soul, not sell.
Yeah, I really like that languaging. I use that languaging, sell or soul. There's some things that are little in our life that you sell out on. So you're in a relationship with someone and you've set an expectation of what you want your life to look like. You then connect with another person who has things in their life that are important that they achieve and that they do. And sometimes those things can come competing, right? And you have to decide, well, this month, what are we doing? Next month, what are we doing? And then what is our life plan? So what happens, what I find in people that I coach is that they sell out on their dreams. They sell out on the things that are important to them. And that decreases their amount of fun, freedom, and fulfillment. So that motivation, that internal thing that got them up in the morning, they don't see it as possible for themselves because something else is overshadowing them, or they allow someone else to overshadow what really lights them up and gets them up in the morning and go. So do not soul out on yourself so that others can shine. You've got to work it out with people so that you're really, hey, I want you to be successful and I want to be successful too. So here are my hopes and my dreams, and I'm just letting you know this is the direction I'm going in.
Right.
I'm letting you know here's where I'm going. And so I just find that in my coaching sessions that people, they find out that they actually train people how to teach them, or they teach people how to treat them.
Interesting.
They teach people how to treat them by souling out on themselves and not taking a stand.
Interesting. Interesting.
It's a big one.
Yeah. Number 2 on the list is create your boundaries and stick to them.
Yeah, so what I've also found, especially in corporate America, is people sign up for job A, and then that job changes. And you have to make a new decision at that point. You don't have to just go along, right? So you've got to create your boundaries as well as your no's, right? If something crosses that boundary that is what I would call a non-negotiable,
Right.
you have to take your stand. And you have to take your place, and you have to say no. And that is really hard for people to do.
And we have to know that it's okay to say no. And so many of us think, oh my gosh, if I say no, they're not going to like us anymore, or we're going to do ourselves harm in some way. It's okay to say no.
I really find that that's true for people who are really people pleasers. They want to be liked, and they're so afraid they're going to get seen in the wrong light.
Right.
And so they will just go along, and you find their light dims over time. They check out, they're not engaged, and they're just going along. And it's really the conversation of, are you committed or are you complying?
Yeah.
And at that point, when someone does let someone cross over the boundaries, they're complying at that point. It's no longer fun, freedom, and fulfillment.
Right. Number 3, be a lifelong learner.
I think that's just my most favorite thing in the world. So, you know, I always say that if you are the smartest person in the room, or if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find another room to sit in. Hang around with people who know more, or who are different, or have different experiences than you do. Pick up books that normally wouldn't be something that you would read. I always say that the people you hang around with and the books you read tell us who you're going to be in 5 years.
Interesting. And get out of your comfort zone.
Yes, get out of your comfort zone.
Kim, any last words of wisdom? We just have a couple of seconds here.
I think the main thing, I love that we landed on being a lifetime learner. I don't think there's anything that could absolutely take the cake better than that. Continue to learn, continue to look for resources, and that empowers you. Knowledge is power.
I think that's a great place to leave it. Kim, thank you so much for being here today. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm sure that our guest will also.
Fabulous. Thank you, Doug.
On a recent road trip, my wife and I stopped to split a sub sandwich at a fast food operation. The sandwich looked great. I went to pay for it. It was $5.23, and I gave the cashier a $5 bill and a single, expecting back, let me see if I do my math right, 77 cents. Imagine my surprise when the cashier handed me back $1.77, and I said, well, excuse me, but I think you overpaid me in the change. She proceeded to say, no, I didn't. I can do math. I have my calculator right here. And I said, well, I really think that you've overpaid me. Well, I did not. So what was I to do? I took the extra buck and said, okay. So how long do you think that business will stay in business?